Welcome to another episode of Inspiring Life Journeys, where we have conversations with everyday people about their journey in life, what they've learned, what the lessons and ups and downs in their life, and what they can share with us, and we can learn from it. Before we get started, let's have a short intro to what our show is. Oh gosh, it went in a loop over there, but that's okay. Today, our guest is Kari Petruch. I'm going to bring Kari onto the stream. And hi, Kari, welcome to the show.
Hi, Shanta.
So good to have you here. Carrie's a dear friend of mine, and she's a master relationship coach. So I'm going to just read a little bit of intro about Carrie, and then we can get started about who Carrie is and what her journey has been in life, and what we can pick up from her life stories. So Carrie is a master relationship coach, strategic interventionist, best-selling author of Get Out of the Box and Into Play: The Secret of Lasting Relationship. She's the CEO of the Highest Intent Life Coaching. She's been helping people all over the world for a lifetime. She's a mother of three, a grandmother of eight, and married to the man of her dreams. Carrie helps couples to find even more joy and excitement in their relationship using her amazing Relationship Reignition Program. Got that right, I hope. She's a contributing author in the Wall Street's best-selling book, WTF to OMG. Carrie has future plans to create a fabulous couples retreat. Welcome, Carrie. You
Thank you.
Yeah, what a life. You've been blessed with children and eight grandchildren. That's awesome.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah, you've been married for so long, and now you're helping couples with their relationship. So that's awesome that your journey in life has brought you to where you are. But to get started, I like to go back because life's journey is like a travel book, right? So you go through life
hmm
from the time you're young, and you have so many experiences. It's like a page, you turn the pages and you learn from that. So let's go back to the time you were small. You were young. Where did you grow up, and what was your life like? In the early years, maybe like between middle, still up to elementary, middle school.
Well, I grew up in Indiana. My parents were very, very, very young, and they divorced when I was very, very young. Um, my mother was suffers from a mental illness. She is paranoid schizophrenic, and I spent my early childhood with a mother who um, thought that it was normal that people who weren't there would have conversations with her, and there would be bugs on the wall that she thought we should have to smash them. And um, when I was in early childhood, I thought there was something wrong with me because I didn't see the people who were there. I didn't experience seeing the bugs that were there. So if your mother is the only one that's in your life, your only reality is what you see and what she tells you is there. And so I didn't really discover that that wasn't the right way until I started school. And when I started school, I realized that other kids did not see people who weren't there. Other kids did not um, have fights and conversations with those people. Other kids didn't see things crawling around them. They didn't have that. And so my whole world opened up when I went to school. And I'm really thankful that I went to school. I'm really thankful that I wasn't kept at home because that mental illness was pretty devastating to me. When I was 6 years old, my mother had a delusion that I was evil and picked me up by my neck and threw me into a glass table, which broke the glass table. Um, I was paralyzed on my right side of my body and didn't speak for a year. My grandmother took custody of my brother and I, and um, we were able to have a better growing up life because of her. She was my saving grace. Um, a special story. It was 6 months. I didn't speak for a year, but it was 6 months after that I began to walk again. And at 1 year, the doctors weren't sure if I was ever going to talk again. And what happened was I padded in the summer morning to the kitchen where my grandmother was, and um, I her back was turned to me. She was at the sink, and I said, "Grandmother, there's a butterfly on my shoulder." And there was a butterfly that stayed on my shoulder and walked with me, came with me into the kitchen, and she fell to her knees and thank God that I was going to be okay. Those are the first words that I ever spoke. So that's kind of how my childhood was. it,
Mm-hmm.
it was pretty tough as a little girl, but I had the saving grace of my grandmother and my grandfather who helped to raise me until I was 16. And then at 16, I moved to Houston. My dad was transferred to Houston, and I wanted to spend time with him, so I moved to Houston, Texas, and Texas is my home.
Awesome. Yeah, that must have been a lot to go through as a little child, not knowing, not really realizing what's happening.
Yeah,
And
no.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty tough as a kid, but there's uh, my grandmother says I was born this way,
Mm,
and I had faith. I always had faith that everything was going to be okay. I always had faith in something bigger than me, and nothing that happened to me broke my spirit. To this day, I have that unending, enduring faith that there is something bigger than me, and I'm not it,
that's
and I
wonderful.
don't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for people out there who don't believe in that, there's if you don't believe that there's something there, there's a collective spirit, there's a oneness of humanity. There's always something bigger, whether it's nature or could be your boss, but there's always something bigger than
Mm-hmm.
me. And that knowledge and that truth in my life has kept me in joy, no matter what happened to me.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, you do need to have that something that you can hang on to, right? When things get
Mhm.
tough, and you have that. And what a blessing for you to have your grandmother to be able to walk you through
Mhm.
that early childhood years, which is really so formative, right? That you really pick up things, and
Right.
that she was there for you all along. What a blessing that was.
Mhm.
So going into Houston, how was your, tell us something about maybe something interesting, something fun. What was it like growing up in your up through high school and graduating there?
Well, moving to Houston was very different. I was at a small high school, and I moved to a high school where my graduating class was 1,200 students. It was
Mm,
the seniors was 1,200 students. The school was about 5,000 kids in the school, and it was pretty amazing. Um, I really had a grand time. I really did. I was very involved in school and very involved in choir and drama, and um I was always a pretty shy girl. So choir and drama was a way for me to express myself
mm-hmm.
without having to be the center of attention. I could be a part of something, and that was the saving grace for me. Um,
That's awesome. That's great. So after you graduated, you took on a journey that That was pretty interesting, and it's a lot of people go through that, but I think you took that on with grace and things. So let's see how. Tell us how you got into these forces
Well,
services.
at 18 years old, I enlisted in the United States Army, and I spent my time in the Army and did what I needed to do. I don't really talk about what it is that I did because it's supposed to be kind of private.
Mm-hmm.
But I was active duty and fulfilled my enlistment, and during that time, I married my first husband. My current husband is my second husband, but I married my first husband as while I was in the service, and um, and it was not such a good story.
Mm-hmm.
It
Uh-huh.
yes, but I have three beautiful children from that marriage, and
Mm-hmm.
of course, my eight grandchildren came from that marriage. So yes, I was married for a very long time, and it was not a good place to be. It was very, very mentally, emotionally, and physically abusive. And
Mm.
so in 2011, I decided to walk away and get help and go through therapy. And while I did that, I realized that I love people and I love relationships. And
Mm-hmm.
so I embarked on the journey and I asked my higher power what my purpose was and what I was meant to do and meant to be with all of these things that I'd been through in my life. And the answer I got was an unequivocal, you're meant to help other people with their relationships. Um,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people don't get that defining moment in their lives, but that was my defining moment of what it is. And I have, for the last 5 years, been absolutely overjoyed. I help people with their relationships, but today I focus on helping couples who are struggling.
Okay, that's great. I think all your experiences have drawn you to that, and that it's so
Uh,
powerful that you've come to a place where you can help couples. So tell us a little bit about what you do in your business, and how have the lessons that you've learned from the past really been helping you to where you are today?
well, I mostly the kinds of couples who come to me are couples who are transitioning. And a lot of times when couples get married and they're married for a long time, their focus on each other wanes and their focus on money and children and all of the things in outside life come into play. And then one day the children grow up and they go away, and the two of them are left sitting there looking at each other and saying, "Who are you and what are you doing in my house?"
Mhm.
And it happens
Yeah.
because they forget about each other. And my mission is to try and help couples before they get there and after they get there to
Hmm.
remember that there was an initial love. There was a real attraction and love for each other, and that they've forgotten. And one of the things I tell couples all the time is please remember that the two of you are together, and if you want to stay together forever, you have to remember that the two of you come first. You know,
Hmm.
a lot of times the job, the kids, the money, the all those things get in the way, and it's important to push those aside and make time for those intimate moments together. Make time to connect with each other. Go there's 100 things to do to 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 stay connected.
Right, right. What are some of the things that you would suggest to people who want to reignite and rekindle that relationship? What are some of the things you would suggest, or some tips that you can give them?
Oh my, I could talk to you for hours on things that people can do to rekindle. But what I'll do is I'll tell you a story of a couple who came into my
Yeah.
office and they
Mhm.
were headed for divorce. They didn't want to be married anymore and they came into my office and they were screaming. And I am not accustomed to people coming into my office and screaming at each other. And I was really, really close to saying, listen, I think you need a therapist because Shanta, I'm a coach and I help people with tools to make their own changes in their lives. But I am
Mhm.
not a therapist. And sometimes people need therapy before they can get to coaching. So I was so close. And what I said to them is first off is that I won't have yelling in my office.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
this is my boundary. I don't do that. And what I did tell them is that, hey, what I want you to do is I want you to hold hands for 30 minutes and no yelling, no screaming, no angry, no nothing. Just sit across from each other and hold each other's hands for 30 minutes. Go home and do that. And if you can do that, then we can talk.
Mm.
And sure enough, they did. And it's been 3 years since then. They are still married and madly in love with each other again, and still holding hands and still having fun together. So it was making time, and what the woman who was the wife in the relationship said to me was that the two of them sat for 30 minutes and held each other's hands and wept. They
Mm.
just cried. And what happened was they forgot each other,
Mhm.
and my biggest advice for couples is don't forget. Don't forget. Some of the, if you want me to share, I can tell you some of the wonderful things that you can do to keep that love alive.
Yeah, I'm sure our listeners would love to hear that.
Yeah, and holding hands is important, and being kind to each other and doing kind things for each other. But get creative.
Mm.
Get creative. Do some fun things. Like one of the fun things that I like to suggest to couples is to write little love notes on post-it notes. Like these little. You know. Oh, I lost my video. Okay,
Oh, there you
there
are.
we are.
Mhm.
Sorry about
Mhm.
that.
No, that's okay.
So these little, sticky notes. Take these little sticky notes and write little love things on them. Take 20 of them and write, I love you because you have a great smile. I love you because you hug me for no reason. I love you because, and write all that stuff down. And then the fun part is to sneak it where your partner will never look. Like I like to sneak a note into my husband's underwear drawer in between his underwear. I don't know which day he's going to pick up the underwear and find the note. That's
Mhm.
the excitement and joy and intimacy that everyone can give in their relationship. And if you go to my website, you can find a free PDF there with 50 things that couples can do for fun. But I tell
Mhm.
you that another thing is, some people get offended. So if you're offended, I'm sorry, but my husband pats me on the butt, and I want him to pat me on the butt. I don't mean spank me, I just mean pat me on the butt when he walks by, because he likes to do that, and I like that he's acknowledging me. And sometimes I
Mhm.
pat him on the butt. And that's part of a marriage and part of a relationship, and the freedom to touch each other and be close to each other and realize the magic of who the two of you are. And believe me, like there are no two human beings who are the same, there's no one like the two of you. You are
Yeah.
you are together and a one, and you can stay that way. If you're bored and you think you're bored, then you're boring. Don't be boring. Get
Mhm.
creative. Do fun things. Another thing I like to do is sneak up on my husband. He can be outside going for a walk and get all sweaty and stuff, and sneak up on him and spray him with the water hose. You
Hmm.
know, be ready to
Yeah.
play. Just be ready to play. Play chase around the house with each other. You know, it's be fun with each other. Spend time with each other. You know what? Those kids will wait. You know, their demands are, it's good for kids to wait. It's
Hmm.
good for them to understand that this is mommy and daddy time, or mommy or daddy and daddy, don't get me wrong, but
Hmm.
this is the our time, and this is your time. And when it's
Right.
our time, you have to do for yourself and entertain yourself. But when it's our time, it's our time. And if you stay in that and you realize that the most important person in your life is your partner, when those kids grow up and go away, you still will be the most important person in each other's
Yeah,
life.
that's really true. And it's never too. The kids are, they need to learn right from the time they are young, right? That they need their time.
Yeah, but if you don't, it's not
Hmm.
too late.
Hmm.
Because there was a love that brought you together. If you can get yourselves back to that love, you can fall in love again.
Yeah.
You can remember that funniness and that playfulness and that joy that the two of you had. But there are times, Shanta, where things
Hmm.
get in the way of that love. And I don't mean to tell you that the only thing that I do for couples is talk about joy. Certainly, with the ultimate goal is to get to joy, but there are things that get in the way. And the two major things that get in the way for marriages, it's not what you think. It's not money, sex, kids. This is what we've been told. This is a belief that's been handed down to us in our society. Money, sex, kids. These are the wrongs. The truth is, it is the blame game and the need to be right.
Mm.
So when we decide that we have to be right, then our ego is in the way. And if I have to be right, or if my partner has to be right, then that is where most conflict happens because it's a control game.
Hmm.
It's about who is in control. If I say to myself, I don't need to be right, if I can agree to disagree, or agree to be wrong, or agree that there's no need to be right, funny things happen when you lay down your ego and you just accept each other for who you are. We're all creatures. We all have pride that gets in the way. And by the way, pride is not a bad thing. Pride,
Hmm.
we need pride in our lives. We need some sense of ego in our lives. But when that need to be right begins to try to control someone else and how they think and feel and behave, then it becomes a problem in a relationship.
Yeah.
And that need to be right leads to the blame game too. So when we get into saying it's your fault that and it's your responsibility that, when we get into doing that, then we get into criticism, and again, it is goes back to that need to be right and that control issue. So I have three sentences for your listeners.
Uh-huh.
Whenever we get angry and we need to express that anger, before we express that anger, there are three sentences I want you to think about.
Okay.
Does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said by me right now?
That's very powerful.
Those three
Really powerful.
sentences,
Uh-huh.
yes. If you can, and I know it's super hard when you're upset,
Hmm.
to think about it, but if you can take a time out for just 1 minute and say, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said by me right now? And take a deep breath chances are you're going to decide, well, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't really need to say that, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. And our words are so powerful, right? So just the thought of just taking a minute to think about, does it
Mhm.
really need to be said, or said now, or said by me? Um,
Mhm.
that really gives you just a few seconds really to think about what you're going to say, and holds you back. And
Right.
and that's just like, even when we people write communications,
Mhm.
an email or a letter, just having to stop and think about that. Those are really powerful three little sentences that you shared here.
Thank you. Those sentences are kind of my mantra throughout all of my coaching practice is those three sentences. They
Mm-hmm.
they save me, they save my best friends, they save my coaching clients. Those three sentences make all the difference in the world. And if you can't think that, there is another tool. Would you like to hear about that one?
Yeah, I would love to.
Well, there is another tool if you just can't manage it, and that is this. This is something that was taught to me at 16 by my father. And this is how it goes. At 16, I had a friend who said some really mean things to me at school, and I came home and I was really angry. And I was telling my dad what I was going to do to her, what I was going to say to her, and how I was going to say it. And he instructed me to go and write it all down. He said, write down all those mean words and all those mean things that you want to do to her. Write them all down. And I just kind of looked at him funny, and he's like, be nasty. Write every cuss word if you want to. Write it all down. Just say everything that you're going to say to her. And I said, okay. And he said, then come talk to me. And so I brought my paper, and I was going to read him this paper to tell him what I was going to say. And he says, no, you're not going to read that to me. He says, you're going to fold it up, fold it in half, fold it in half again. And he said, and I want you to go stick it in your drawer in your bedroom. And he said, I want you to let it sit without looking at it for 24 hours. And the next day, I want you to open that letter up. And if you still feel that way, you come talk to me. Well, 24 hours later, I opened it up and I was like, I can't say this to her. This is terrible. Nobody, you can't say stuff like this. Is Kari, it's like, this is a terrible, terrible thing. And it saved me from doing very, very bad harm to someone
Yeah.
that I really cared about. So if you can't think of those three sentences, go write it down. Write your mad out. Just write your mad out. Fold it up and don't look at it. And then my father said one more thing to me. He said, if you'd come to me and you'd said to me that you still wanted to send it to her, my instruction to you would have been to stick that back in your drawer for 3 more days
Yeah,
and then
that's a
look
good
at
one.
it. So,
Yeah.
it works so well.
Yeah, no, that's great advice from your dad. I think we can use it in life and business
Oh
and
yeah,
relationship.
yeah.
It's with all of sometimes with our strong personalities and our need to be right, like you said,
Hmm.
we kind of feel that we always need to be right, or or you're always in the right, and it's just to step back and think, do you really need to do this, or So
Yeah.
that's really great. That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
then now I'm going to quote Deepak Chopra,
Uh-huh.
who recently was asked
Okay.
what his number one comment was for relationships. And then I love it because it's mine too. And that is, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? That's
Mm.
what he said. He
Hmm.
said, it's all the advice I've got. That was pretty recently that he did that. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Yeah, it's so directly linked to that, right? So if you can
Mhm.
continually want to be right, then you know you're really not. In the end, it's really not your happiness. It's a combined relationship happiness.
Mhm.
So that's where you lead to. Carrie, I'm going to touch on some of with my travel business, I'm always interested in people's travels, where they've been, and I know you've been around the world. And tell
Hmm.
me, what is the best place where you've lived, and what was your experience like, and what was the fun things you did, and can you share something about that?
Oh, to ask me where the best place I lived is so hard because I loved everywhere that I lived.
Give me a
Um,
couple. It doesn't have to be just one.
but no, truly my favorite place in the world was Florence, Italy. And the reason it was is because I have such a passion for cooking. And when I was very young, I went to culinary school there. And so I lived and breathed and ate in Florence and learned how to speak Italian. And because school was not in English, it was in Italian. And
Mhm.
um, I have such a passion for food from all over the world. Was a place of much joy and a lot of peace for me. Although I've lived in many places in the world, that that was that's the one that I always want to go back to over and over again.
That's great. Yeah, I love Italy, and the Florence, the Tuscany area is so
Hmm.
beautiful. Yeah, I know you mentioned in your bio that a couples retreat is in your near future sometime. That
Hmm.
would be a beautiful place to start off your couples retreat
Oh
in
yeah.
the hills of in a villa in the hills of Tuscany, right? So
Oh
that
yes.
would be great. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
it would be so super cool to, and I'm working on it. It would be so super cool to arrange a culinary experience as
Mhm.
and the relationship to marry both the relationship reignition and the culinary experience. I'm just so excited about doing that.
Yeah, that'll be an awesome trip. Tell us some of the other places. I know
That
you've
I've
traveled a
lived.
lot. Hmm.
I've lived in Germany. I lived there for 6 years, and I love Germany. It is some of the most beautiful country. It's in the Rhineland-Pfalz area that I lived, and the beautiful farmland, and the Rhine is there, and oh, it's just I love Germany. I really do. I love Bavaria. I love all of Germany.
Yeah, yeah. It is a
um,
beautiful country, especially to drive around,
oh yeah.
and the Rhine region is so gorgeous with all the castles and as you go through it. So
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
one of my favorite
magnificent.
places too.
Yeah. And then the another place that I lived, I've traveled to other countries, but the other place that I lived was in a place called Anjanyi in South Korea.
Okay.
And I lived there for 2 years, and I absolutely love the Korean people, and I love Korean food, and I learned how to make Korean food too. I always tie in food to everything because
Yeah.
like I said, I have a great passion for food all over the world, and my I have a dream of where I want to go before I die, and I definitely want to go to India. I have wanted to go to India since I was 3 years old, and uh, love Indian food, and I want to go, and everybody tells me, no, you have to go with a group of people and yeah,
Yeah.
all this stuff, and so someday I will go. Before I die, I will go to India. I don't know why, but I just have this absolute draw and fascination.
Oh, that's great. I'm from India, so I'd love to take you anytime whenever you're ready. Yeah.
That would be great to have someone with me. And that's what I'm told is I really need to go with someone who is from India. I just shouldn't go by myself. So I shouldn't go alone there. I should definitely go with
Yeah,
someone who's from
yeah,
India.
it's nice to go, even if you don't go with a group, but at least you have a really great guide, and that we,
Oh
to take
yeah.
you around, and your safety and everything else. But it's such a cultural difference and diversified. You'll find so much of diversity,
Oh.
even just from the North and South India, and so many beautiful places. You'll enjoy it.
Well, I don't mean to be too strange or anything, but my grandmother claimed that I had a whole story at 3 years old of my life in India, where I lived, and I was by the sea, and I took in orphan children, and she said that she never did understand. We're in Indiana and farm country. This is not she just thought I had the most amazing imagination. Now, whether it was imagination or a past life, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But she still before she died, she said, "You have to go to India. You have to go. You have to see the sea in India." So someday I
Awesome.
will.
I know, yeah. That's awesome. That's great, that you've had this travel passion from the time you were young, and you've
Hmm.
traveled extensively, and you've experienced so many culture and food, and I love the
Hmm.
fact that you link the cuisine to your journeys. So
I do. I do. Although I haven't been to India, but I learned, because I have a passion for Indian food, I learned how to make so much Indian food at home too. So
so you
I'm
you
like,
can you can have a culinary evening there. You can have some German food, some Korean food,
oh yeah,
some
my
Italian, and some Indian. There we
my
go.
husband is really, really spoiled because he doesn't know there's always something different for dinner. I don't think we rarely repeat anything for dinner. He's always wondering what's for dinner. It's something new and exciting, or yeah.
That's awesome.
But we
Great.
still have American things too sometimes. Sometimes we have meatloaf, you know.
Uh-huh. That's good too. It's a combination of
All right.
different
And
cultures
fried
there.
chicken, and yeah, and barbecue. We have barbecue and greens and all that good stuff too. So we have
That's great.
everything.
That's awesome. Carrie, before we wrap it up a
Mhm.
little bit, I'm going to put your how people can reach you, but kind of give us a little bit about how you can help them, and what they can get once they go to your website. I think you mentioned it a little bit before, but I'd like to recap that.
Well, if you go to my website, there are lots of things that you can do on my website. One thing is you can sign up for 50 things that couples can do for fun, and that's completely free to you. All you got to do is put your little email thing in there, and there you go. I have a blog on my website where you can read, and my blogs are not 3 pages long. They are 1 minute reads with little tips and tricks for relationships in there. So you can take a moment and just read a blog. If you sign up for the blog, then you'll get my blog in like 3, 4 days before it is published on my website. I have quite a following there. Um, if you're interested in having a conversation with me to see if I can help you, it's pretty easy. There's a Calendly link on my website, and you can sign up and we can have a conversation. I don't charge for those, and I call them conversations because I don't sell. Either we're a fit and I have what you want, or I don't. And I'm
Mhm.
absolutely fine with that. I'd rather have a conversation with you, and even if that conversation only gives you a tip or a tool that you really love and can apply to your relationship, I'm more than happy to give that to you.
That's great. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for those great tips that you've given us, the three little sentences that you gave us, and also, a great tip from your dad about, wrapping it up and not really sending things. And I find that even when you send an email, sometimes we are so quick to sending out something. It's almost like that,
Mm,
right? Just just
right.
write it out and don't send it, or just hold back and think whether it's really necessary.
Yeah. Take a
And
breath, walk
take a
away.
breath. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thanks for your website, the way people can reach you. And thank you so much. And everybody, go into Carrie's website, subscribe to her blog. And if you want to get in touch with her, have a conversation with her, and she can help you in different ways. So thank you so much,
Okay.
and thanks everybody for joining. Please do share, subscribe, and comment on this video, and it will be out there for you to share as well. So before we wrap it up, thanks a lot, and just goodbye. Until our next show, we'll see you next on the next show of Inspiring Life Journeys.
Thanks.